What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Full 90. It is time for the Week 24 Premier League predictions. Here are the winning accumulators we've posted on the Patreon and the YouTube channel for the members since the last video. I've actually had about 3 or 4 days off posting that because there weren't that many games that I was into in terms of predicting and posting tips for. But we did obviously perfectly predict Man City to beat Brentford 3-1 in the Premier League in the last video. But these were also the accumulators we had that won for the members exclusively, including a very nice La Liga result, and both teams have scored double with Valencia and Barcelona, and then a couple of others down here. Serie B. I love chucking in Serie B. It's great. A lot of people probably don't know much about it. This is the kind of intel you can get if you do join. Here are the new members that have joined on YouTube since the last episode, and flashing up on the screen are all of the members that have joined over on Patreon that support me. So if you want to get involved, you can click the first link in the description or the join button down below. But let's delay no further. Kicking it off, we have Manchester City up against Everton, playing their game in hand. So after the early kickoff, we will see what the Premier League table looks like with everyone, at least at the top. I'm not sure how it's looking at the bottom, having played the same games, and we will see Manchester City at the top of the league outright because they're going to be Everton here. Everton did well to get a 2-2 draw against Tottenham. Very, very late equaliser for them. Sean Dyche got booked just prior to that after being very angry with the ref. And Man City did the business against Brentford. Brentford going ahead, and then Man City doing what City do, scoring goals. Foden with the hat-trick. I'm going to go for another 3-1 win to Manchester City here because I think Everton are capable of scoring. Put 2 past Tottenham, and Man City, they're allowed to concede because they just score more than everyone else. They've won every single game since Christmas. They haven't drawn any, I don't think, in the league. They're just winning, winning, winning. They're going on that streak that everyone is talking about, and they're not even playing at their best, I don't think. They're really not. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to Man City, and the tip is Man City to win and both teams to score at 2.6. After this, it's Fulham up against Bournemouth. Fulham getting a 2-2 draw with Burnley, and Bournemouth getting a 1-1 draw with Nottingham Forest. I think it's going to be pretty close. Both those games last week, we tipped both teams to score, and as you heard, it was a score draw. I'm going to go for a score draw, 2-2, Fulham and Bournemouth, both teams to score at 1.61. Worth looking at Dominic Solanke to score, I reckon. I think if Bournemouth are going to score twice, Solanke's probably going to get one of them, and I think there will be goals in this game. After that, it's Liverpool up against Burnley, and I think this is going to be very conclusive. This is going to be a high-scoring win. I'm going to go for a 4-0 win to Liverpool. Not sure if Salah's going to be back for this one. Obviously, Egypt have already been knocked out of AFCON, but during that, Salah got himself injured. And also, shout out to Nigeria and Ivory Coast for making the final of AFCON. And, of course, Jordan and Qatar for making it to the final of the Asian Cup, which will both be being played this weekend. I think Liverpool are going to win quite convincingly, and I'm going to go for Liverpool half-time, full-time at 1.57. You could also go Liverpool late goal, which is usually around about 83 or 84 minutes onwards. You can get odds of 1.83 for Liverpool to score, or just any team to score. Could be Burnley as well, because Burnley scored against Man City that late, so they could contribute as well. I also considered Liverpool -2 handicap at 2.1, which is just 3-0 and above, 4-1, 5-2, you know, you get what it is. I just think it's going to be a conclusive victory for Liverpool at Anfield, and that's what I'm going with. After this, it's Luton up against Sheffield United, and I am going to give a tip that I have never given in the history of the Full 90, mostly because Luton have only joined the Premier League this season, so I haven't had a chance up until this year, and it hasn't been up until recently. I felt very confident of such a tip, so I'm going to go for a Luton home win. I'm going to go for Luton to win 2-1. Sheffield United are looking pretty woeful. And the tip, it is going to be Luton to win at 1.72. I do think both teams will score. That's worth a look. But Luton, they dispatched of Brighton not too long ago. And I do think they're going to get a win here after a brilliant game against Newcastle. 4-2 up, though, for Luton. And then kind of surrendered that lead in the latter moments of the game. But I'm going to go for a 2-1 home win to Luton. After that, Tottenham Hotspur up against Brighton. Brighton last week beating Crystal Palace 4-1. They had to make a statement after losing so heavily to Luton, as we just mentioned. And Tottenham thrown away a very good 3 points it would have been from Goodison Park with a 2-2 draw. I think Tottenham are going to beat Brighton here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I've actually gone for quite a conclusive scoreline. I've gone for 3-1 to Tottenham, which is pretty heavy. But my tip is not going to go towards that. It's going to go towards the goal market. Both teams to score. And over 2.5 goals at 1.61. I could see this being 2-2. I could see this being 2-1 to Brighton. I could see any result, but something tells me at home Tottenham are going to have enough to get the job done. So I've gone for both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. After that, we have Wolverhampton Wanderers up against Brentford. Wolves beating Chelsea 4-2, a phenomenal result. And then Brentford, as expected, losing out to Manchester City. I think Wolves are going to win this one at home, and I am going to go for another classic scoreline, 2-1. Out of all the perfect scorelines I've predicted in the history of the full 90, 2-1 and 1-1 are the most common scorelines that I predict correctly, followed closely by 2-0. I think 2-1, it just looks good because there's usually a team that looks like they're going to win, but not necessarily as convincing to the point where they don't at least concede one goal. And I think this is one of those times. So I'm going to go 2-1 to Brentford, and the tip is both teams to score at 1.66. I preferred that as opposed to Wolves to win at 2.05, just because I think Brentford are going to score, but Wolves, they've been scoring a decent amount of goals lately. I mean, in the past, it's been you go to Wolves and you think this is going to be 0-0, but not this season. There's been lots of goals. Obviously, last week was a record-breaking game week, the highest amount of goals in a 10-team or 10-game week in Premier League history. So I think we are going to follow suit with more goals here. 2-1 to Wolves. And after this, it's Nottingham Forest up against Newcastle. Nottingham Forest getting a point at the Vitality Stadium, a pretty good point, and Newcastle dropping 2 points, you could argue, at St James's Park against Luton, but doing well in the end to come back from 2 goals down. So I think Newcastle are going to bounce back with a win here. Nottingham Forest look like they could potentially be the third team to go down with Burnley and Sheffield United should things not change. Newcastle need a win here. I'm going to go for it. 2-1 to Newcastle United. And my tip is going to be Newcastle to win at 2.05. I like the look of that. I can see why it's above evens. But at the end of the day, Newcastle are a level above Nottingham Forest. And given the recent results for them, well, I say recent results, just basically dropping points to Luton in the way that they did at St James's Park needs to be rectified, I feel like. And I think they can get the better of Nottingham Forest. After this, we move on to Super Sunday with West Ham up against Arsenal. This is a very important game, especially because West Ham beat Arsenal last time out, and it was one of the worst Arsenal performances I have ever seen. Genuinely, it was so poor, and I hated it. I hated watching that game. It genuinely, like I said, one of the worst Arsenal performances I've ever seen in recent years. It was horrible, and I think we're going to go back with a vengeance. We thoroughly deserved to beat Liverpool. Finally, what a game that was. It's the most, I think, XG Liverpool have conceded under Jurgen Klopp in the Premier League. It was a phenomenal performance from Arsenal and deserved the win, absolutely. And I think Arsenal are going to continue that form and take a win here. West Ham, albeit should have probably scored against Man United, they ended up losing 3-0. We predicted Man United would win 3-1, so we were pretty close there. I'm going to go for West Ham to lose 3-1 again in my prediction. Arsenal to win 3-1. My tip is Arsenal and both teams to score at 3.1. I think they will concede because West Ham were unlucky not to score against Man United, but I think in terms of domination, Arsenal should have this result over West Ham. I think they should. They're looking good. After this, it's Aston Villa up against Manchester United. This is a really difficult one to call in the sense I just saw Aston Villa capitulate against Chelsea in the FA Cup. Looked very weird. And Unai Emery waited until 71 minutes to make a substitution. And who but those two subs combined for a late goal against Chelsea? Perhaps he should have done something a little bit sooner. But Aston Villa very soundly beaten by Chelsea in the FA Cup. Didn't really rotate their squad all that much, and they're coming up against a Man United team who have rested their players, obviously, since the last game, won that game convincingly. So I think Man United have a pretty decent chance of winning here at Villa Park, but something tells me there will be some kind of reaction from Aston Villa, and I'm just going to say a 2-2 draw. I think Man United could win in the same way that I tipped Man United to beat West Ham, in the same way that I tipped Man United to beat Wolves away from home. So many people said that wasn't going to happen, but I think it was going to, and it did. So it wouldn't surprise me if Man United snuck a little 2-1 away win here, but I am going to go 2-2. And the tip is both teams are scoring over 2.5 goals at 1.8. And the final game, Monday Night Football, it is Crystal Palace up against Chelsea. Palace got absolutely battered by Brighton, and Chelsea got torn a new one by Wolves, but then looked pretty good in the FA Cup. Bit of a cup team this season. Chelsea could have a very mid-season, finishing 8th or 9th, but win the League Cup and the FA Cup. You just never do know. But I think Chelsea are actually going to win this game away. I think that victory at Villa Park really helped. And it's funny, my dad and I were watching the game and we wondered initially why Nicholas Jackson was playing in the position that he was, but actually it turns out when he's not the out and out striker missing all the chances, it actually kind of works out for him. We both kind of laughed at his header that he scored whilst it was directed in a sense I think the ball just hit him in the face. He didn't jump or anything like that, but either way, it was a good goal. And I think Chelsea are going to win this one against Crystal Palace. Palace looking a little bit shaky. Maybe Roy Hodgson needs to go, to be honest. Palace don't want to be dragged into a relegation battle, do they? But I am going to go for a 2-0 away win, and Chelsea to win at 1.83 looks fairly good. I like that. So that is going to be my tip, and that is going to do it for my week 24 Premier League prediction. So if you did enjoy it, please do drop a like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the future videos, because we have Champions League coming back to the channel with a video this Monday, Premier League again next Thursday as usual, and then another Champions League video for the round of 16 predictions. So look forward to that, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.